Welcome to my YouTube serial Scuola Immaginaria della Lira, or SIMM. As promised, in this 8th sequel of my Scuola Immaginaria della Lira, or SIMM, I would like to talk about Alessandro Striggio and his lira. My text will be combined with some of his compositions, whereas as first comes my introduction on the lirone and then the recording borrowed from the excellent CD Alessandro Striggio, Mass in 40 Voices, recorded by I Fagiolini, directed by Robert Hollingworth in 2010 and published by Decca Classics in 2011. In one case, you shall hear the King's Singers recording of Striggio's madrigal Eran Nymphe e Pastori, and in another, the somehow aseptic performance by an artificial choir to which I recorded my playing on the lirone, in both cases with my introduction on this instrument. To both Striggio and Cardano, who, as you already know, wrote about his lira, I intend to make another video soon. Who was Alessandro Striggio, father of the Monteverdi's librettist of the same name in the case of opera or favola in musica, Orfeo, and why is he so interesting for us as a player of the lira? First, in few words, the most important facts. Alessandro Striggio, born in 1536 or 1537 and died on 29th of February 1592, was an Italian composer, instrumentalist, and diplomat of the Renaissance. He composed numerous madrigals as well as dramatic music, and by combining the two became the inventor of madrigal comedy. His compositions include also the monumental Missa, sopra, Ecco, beato, giorno for up to 60 voices, rediscovered in 2005 after being lost for 400 years. Striggio Sr. was born in Mantua as illegitimate son of an aristocrat and respected war veteran of the same name. Records of his early life are sparse, but he must have gone to Florence as a young man. He began working for Cosimo de' Medici on 1st of March 1559 as a musician, eventually to replace Francesco Corteccia as the principal and definitively best paid musician to the Medici court. In 1560, he visited Venice and produced 2 books of madrigals in response to the musical styles he encountered there. In 1567, the Medici sent him on a cultural diplomatic mission to Austria, visiting Innsbruck, Vienna and Brno, Munich, Paris and London. Throughout the 1560s, Striggio composed numerous intermedi for Medici, for their weddings, visits and other state occasions. In the 50s-70s, he continued to work for Medici, but there is some evidence he began to travel away from Florence. He had some connections to the Bavarian court in Munich and may have gone there on more than one occasion, possibly for the performance of his 40-voice motet Ecce Beatam Lucem, which he wrote for a royal marriage there. became friend with Vincenzo Galilei, the father of the astronomer, during the 1570s. Whether he was a member of the Florentine Camerata is uncertain. In 1586, Striggio moved to Mantua, where he remained for the rest of his life, although he retained a close association with the Medici, composing music for them at least as late as 1589. Striggio wrote relatively little sacred and a lot of secular music, and all of his surviving music is vocal, although sometimes, as documented, performed with instrumental accompaniment. He published 7 books of madrigals, and in addition, the madrigal comedy Il cicalamento delle donne al bucato et la caccia, the gossip of the women at the laundry. A work on yet larger scale and long reputed to be lost is Striggio's Mass, composed in 40 parts, which included a 60-voice setting of the final Agnus Dei. The work was unearthed by British musicologist David Moroney in 2005 and identified as a parody mass, Missa, sopra Ecco, beato, giorno. Striggio was highly influential, as can be seen by the wide distribution of his music in Europe in the late 16th century. His influence was present in England too. This may have been due in part to his 1567 visit, and also may have been related to the activities of Alfonso Ferrabosco Sr., the Italian madrigalist who was resident in England for most of his life and helped popularize the Italian style there. Mentioning Alfonso Ferrabosco father, it should be said that he played the lira too, even if it is not clear which, da braccio or da gamba, it est lirone. The esteem in which Striggio Sr. was held is further shown by remarks attributed to Lorenzo Antinori by Cosimo Bartoli in his Ragionamenti Accademici, Venice, 1567. I had heard a certain Alessandro Striggio being much prized not only as excellent but very excellent in playing the viola, as he could play 4 parts at once with so much ease and musicality that the listeners were amazed. And furthermore, his compositions are considered as musical as good as others heard in these times. In his Fronimo, Vincenzo Galilei calls him raro ingegno, rare talent. And so, we can see from these statements of Striggio's contemporaries, which are confirmed by the popularity that his works enjoyed, as revealed in the many editions, reprints, and inclusion in other collections, that he was considered a ranking musician in his day, both as performer and composer. His works first appeared in print in 1559 and were included regularly in publications down to 1634, more than 40 years after his death. From his own letters we know that Striggio, beside various members of viol family, played both liras, smaller and in his time almost obsolete lira da braccio, and the bigger lira da gamba, called also lirone or archiviolata lira. Striggio's compositional virtuosity, a characteristic of Striggio's music, was complemented by his own instrumental virtuosity, the activity for which he is most frequently and principally recorded in contemporary accounts. We are fortunate that beside already mentioned Bartoli, there are several other accounts about his lira playing. Girolamo Cardano, probably during his tenure as professor of medicine at the University of Bologna from 1562 till 1571, saw Striggio's lira and may well have heard it played by him. He was so impressed that he devoted an entire chapter, number 43, of his treatise De Musica to its description. See later in more detail about that. If we accept that Alessandro Striggio's lira was a lirone, then the first mention of his excellence in this could be found in a letter from the Mantuan agent at the French court to Duke Guglielmo Gonzaga, dated 11th May 1562. Striggino, the musician, has arrived here at court. His Majesty has heard him play both viola and lira, which could be understood as a clear distinction between his abilities to play both viol, viola da gamba, and lirone, it est lira da gamba. The next two sources in connection with Striggio are from 1574. Girolamo Cardano is mentioned Striggio's lira, meaning without any doubt lirone, in his manuscript version of De Musica from 1574, and in a letter Duke William V of Bavaria has written on 3rd of August 1574 to his father Albrecht V, telling that Striggio's instrument was a large lira da gamba with considerable number of strings. Gerardo Francese is almost the best, has a lira da gamba, but not as big as the Striggio, or with so many strings, but very lively and sings a bass and tenor to it. In his letter on 29 of July 1584 from Ferrara to Grand Duke Francesco de' Medici, Striggio wrote, "Every day here His Lordship the Duke of Ferrara wishes to hear my archiviolata lira or lirone, and Sandrino, Alessandro Striggio's son, has pleased him very much." Judging on letter Striggio sent on 2nd of March 1585 from Mantua to Grand Duchess Bianca Campello, David Butchert supposed that father and son presumably formed a duo in which Sandrino singing was accompanied by his father on the lirone. Starting with Striggio's letter sent on 14th of December 1585 from Florence to Don Ferrante Gonzaga, only the signature is in his hand, and aptly a sign of his declining health. Striggio did reappear in Florence in 1589 as an instrumentalist during the sumptuous intermedi which formed part of the celebrations for Ferdinando's marriage to Christine of Lorraine. Sandrino was there too, apparently, and a notable contingent of Mantuan musicians also had a share in the entertainment. Striggio died in his Mantua 3 years later on 29th of February 1592. I left few words about Jerome Cardan, Gerolamo Cardano, or in his Latinized name Hieronymus Cardanus, born 1501 and died 1576, for the end. In one of his writings on music, preserved in a Vatican manuscript 5850, presumably written in 1543, written in 1568, and revised in 1574, he describes Striggio's lira. We have seen Striggio's lira. It is as tall and thick as a man and somewhat wider. The rose is close to the fingerboard so that it scarcely can be seen. The lira was constructed with 18 strings, Its body is rounded with incurved sides, and the fingerboard is a little longer than the body. Even if Cardano information on Striggio's lira is very detailed and valuable, it poses certain problems. The most important is that both the instrument and its tuning are completely different in comparison with all other information on lirone and its tunings by Cereto, Pretorius and Mersenne, all of them from the first third of the 17th century. As already mentioned, those tunings, even if starting on different note, follow the same scheme of the so-called re-entrant tuning of ascending fifths or descending fourths. Since Striggio was so appreciated by his contemporaries and played beside viol also lira da braccio and lirone, we can suppose that he probably played different types of lirone, one using the normal tuning and another bigger with 18 strings using tuning given by Cardano. In any case, 30 years ago and again recently, I made some experiments, and here are results demonstrating the chords Striggio could have played using Cardano's tuning and the same using my slight modification. Another possibility could be that Striggio anticipated something which English musicians of Italian origin, particularly Alfonso Ferrabosco the Younger, 1575 March 1628, composer and viol player, as the first called the lira viol. His own, like the lira viol pieces by other his English colleagues, sound like a strange combination of two liras, lira da braccio and lirone, combining the melody with chord accompaniment. You will hear now the chords I suppose Striggio could perform on his lira. First, on the left side, chords in my version of tuning, and immediately after, on the right side, the chord in Cardano tuning. If there is some difference, it is inversion, which sounds a bit different. You can follow the audio examples on the sheet music above. The basic difference between both tuning is that Cardano gave the tuning of consecutive major triads, and after experiments with tenor viol tuned in 2 consecutive triads I have done some 30 years ago, I thought that using minor triads would give slightly more possibilities. Of course, in this case, some chords would have different position or inversion compared with Cardano tuning. Preparing this SIMM video, I decided to mentally revisit this topic and found out that to get more chords one must use the positions, which, as we learned from Ganassi, was the normal practice of Italian solo viol playing already in early 40s of the 16th century. Despite that, the Cardano tuning gives much less chord possibilities than the re-entrant tuning given by other authors from the first third of the 17th century. In the additional information to this video, you shall find the list with recordings of Striggio's works. It is interesting to notice that 2 of his most significant and spectacular works, above mentioned motet Ecco, Lucem in 40 parts and Mass Ecco, beato, giorno in 40 and 60 parts, has been recorded by several ensembles, but his other works, as for instance the madrigal comedy Cicalamento delle donne al bucato, or most of his madrigals, could be found mostly in live concert recordings on YouTube, but doesn't exist in any available actual CD recordings. Our SIMM number 10, planned for November this year, will bring the second part of this topic devoted to Striggio's life and work and to Cardano's life and works on music, particularly on both liras. See you soon. Bye.